and we can get going. If you read our description, this is all things NBA. For those of you who are sports fans and who've been living under a rock, there's been a lot happening with trades, one particularly in Los Angeles, another trade from a player going from Memphis to the Utah Jazz just happened earlier today. We have the NBA draft starting tomorrow night. So the NBA right now is at the front of the headlines in the sports world. And Nick and I are here to break down all things basketball.
It's insane. I don't know how we're going to break all this down. We were just talking about this before the show, how we're going to get all this stuff in to the amount of time that we want to get it in. No, but we'll do it. And we want to start with obviously the Lakers grabbing Anthony Davis. This is the biggest news in the NBA since LeBron James joined the Lakers last year. Obviously, the first year with him did not work out. But they grabbed Anthony Davis for a lot. And that's primarily what we're just going to discuss really quickly right now, probably about 5 minutes, about whether we liked this trade. What the Lakers gave away. They gave away Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, and 3 first-round picks, including the number 4 pick in tomorrow's NBA draft. I don't know why I pointed behind me, because the draft is not in the Pacific Ocean, where I pointed.
You need to point that way.
Where is actually the NBA draft? Is it in...
that would be in New York.
Brooklyn? Okay, yeah. Makes sense. That's probably where most of the drafts belong. Anyway.
For the NBA, yes. The NFL and some other professional sports leagues kind of every year they have a different venue. The NBA is pretty traditional, and usually every year they do it in Brooklyn, so that's where everyone will be tomorrow night.
Absolutely. No, so we're excited. I'll get my thoughts on this first. I liked this trade. I thought that the fact that they were able to keep Kyle Kuzma was key. You looked at Lonzo, he had injury issues. He was a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, his brothers and his dad are a distraction outside of basketball. They have a reality show, all that stuff. So Lonzo, getting rid of him is not the biggest deal. Brandon Ingram, been dealing with blood clots lately. You don't know the future of him.
Right.
And he was getting better and better, but I don't think at the pace that a lot of Lakers fans needed him to and wanted him to. So giving those two away, and then of course you throw Josh Hart in. Josh Hart's a great teammate, great player, but you can throw him in any trade. I was not going to be angry if Josh Hart was thrown into really any of these trades. So keeping Kyle Kuzma was key in that. I think I said that on our last podcast. I said, don't trade away everybody. Don't trade away all the young core.
Right.
And they didn't.
Got to have somebody.
Exactly, so I can't be mad. The draft picks, very interesting that they gave up 3. I almost thought that the number 4 pick and maybe one other first-round pick would be enough. They add one more in there. I'm not mad. I think to get this deal done, to get Anthony Davis, to create already one of the best teams in the NBA, if you're starting a franchise with LeBron and Anthony Davis, I'm not angry at this. I thought that it was a good idea to trade all of these assets for one of the best players in the NBA.
As you can tell,
yes,
I am wearing a Kobe Bryant jersey. I do not have a LeBron jersey, nor do I have an Anthony Davis jersey since this trade just went down this weekend. But I am sporting the purple and gold with my Kobe Bryant jersey. Yes, I am very excited about this trade.
I'm glad to hear that.
And guess what? At this point, I was basically willing, if I was in the position for the Lakers to make this decision, I would have sold the farm. The Lakers were smart enough to be able to keep Kuzma, which, like you mentioned, I think is huge because Kuzma is so versatile. He plays multiple positions.
Yep.
He can start for you. He can also come off the bench and bring you energy. So I think keeping him was a huge piece. And the fact that currently right now, on Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, the Lakers currently have only 6 players on their roster.
Crazy.
Right? So the Lakers obviously have a lot of work to do and a lot of role players and pieces that they need to add since they did just basically sell the farm, except for LeBron James and Kyle Kuzma. You mentioned some good points. Listen, Lonzo Ball, he was injured for the end of last season with an ankle sprain, and it was pretty severe because I believe he missed like 20 or 25 games, right?
Yes,
so
yeah.
When healthy, I think that Lonzo Ball was actually playing very well. I think a lot of people had a problem with him because, listen, he's the number 2 overall pick, and he wasn't scoring 30 points a game. Right, so when you don't see the stats on a consistent basis from a point standpoint, I think people are saying, well, He's just not good. When in reality, he is a facilitator. He's a guy that likes to get his teammates involved. And he's flat out not a guy that's going to get 30 points a night.
No,
right?
I think everybody's so used to Steph Curry and people like that, and Russell Westbrook that could score, and then of course you had James Harden kind of transition to the point guard. But the point guard position is still the position that's supposed to facilitate the offense, right? You have point forwards or you have point guards. There's not a third one in there, right? You have kind of a hybrid Ben Simmons, but obviously he has not panned out to be what he was supposed to be either. Right. But yeah, it's a great point you mentioned. Lonzo Ball. I think people got, a little over the top with him. Unlike Brandon Ingram, who was also a number 2 pick, that just kind of slowly developed. Lonzo, I think we never really got to see the true, full, healthy Lonzo Ball. But that's what happens in the NBA, and you got to trade some guys.
Yeah, see, I think in the Brandon Ingram part of this trade, that was somewhat of the roll of the dice for the Pelicans. Because listen, from a talent standpoint, I believe that Brandon Ingram is a better player than Kyle Kuzma today. And I think there's many people that would agree with me. The problem is, like Nick mentioned, he does have that blood clot issue, and there's no guarantee that he will be 100% healthy and ready to play, not only next year, but moving forward in his entire career. So whether his career gets whether his career gets cut short or not, hopefully it doesn't, but that's a gamble that the Pelicans are willing to take. If I was the Pelicans, knowing that medical history, I probably would have wanted Kyle Kuzma either with Brandon Ingram, or I would have, taken Brandon Ingram off the table and said we want Kyle Kuzma instead. Fortunately for the Lakers, they were able to keep him. And, listen, so we get what the Lakers gave up.
Yeah.
We have to talk about Anthony Davis and what this means for LeBron James. LeBron James came to the Lakers knowing that he was going to need, along with the front office, they were going to need to get another superstar, at least one, potentially 2, to pair with LeBron to go through the tough Western Conference that they're currently in. They now have Anthony Davis, and Vegas now has the Lakers as the favorites to win
Which
the
is
NBA
crazy because they really only have 4 NBA players on this team. It's Mo Wagner, Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. 4 very solid players right there. We haven't seen a lot from Wagner, but the other 2, one of them's Isaac Bonda. I can't even remember the other one that's on it. It's a fringe D-League NBA player. So it's crazy that Vegas has them as the favorites. I get it. Everybody has non-Warriors fever, assuming that they're not going to win a championship next year because they're out Clay and Kevin Durant. No matter what happens, whether Kevin Durant leaves or not, or if he stays, he's not playing next year. So the Warriors are not going to be the favorites to win the title. They can still make the playoffs, but I think most of us are going to, you can predict right now, unless they go out and get some superstars, that they're not going to win a championship next year. To give it to the Lakers, I don't know. They have 3 players, essentially. So that's, I guess they have some trust in the Lakers front office, which I don't know where that's coming from either. They've done good with this trade. They've done good with what they're doing now, as we're talking on the podcast a couple days after this trade. They're trying to create cap space. They're trying to trade for second-round picks to be able to create one more max slot or get a couple of quality free agents. So, Jared, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think the Lakers should do now that they have their 2 superstars, their young stud and Kyle Kuzma? What do they go out? I'll just place the question like this. Do they go out and get another superstar, or do they just build a very solid roster?
If the Lakers can acquire Kemba Walker or Kyrie Irving or Kawhi Leonard, you do whatever you can to get one of those 3 players to come and pair with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. For as great of players as those 2 are, they can play basically the 1 through 5, right? They can dribble the ball off the court. They can basically do everything on the basketball court. The Lakers currently right now do not have like a true point guard or one that has starting experience in the league. You bring Kemba Walker and you bring Kyrie Irving, that immediately fixes that problem. You have one of the best point guards in the league. You have one of the best power forwards in the league and arguably one of the best centers, even though Anthony Davis does not like to consider himself a center. And I'm not sure if that's for money purposes because centers don't typically make as much money as a power forward does. Mm-hmm. But when he was with the Pelicans and they would introduce him in the starting lineups, he wanted to purposely be introduced as a power forward and not a center, right? So if the Lakers can get one of those other superstars and create their own big 3, you do whatever you have to do that. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. It seems like Kyrie Irving is being linked to the Brooklyn Nets.
Yep.
Kawhi Leonard has an opportunity to either stay with the Toronto Raptors and run that back, potentially go back-to-back championships, or obviously he's being linked heavily with the LA Clippers. Kemba Walker right now, he can, if he stays with the Charlotte Hornets, he can make like $30 million more than if he were to go to another team. Michael Jordan, since he's been the owner, has never given out a Supermax contract.
Yeah,
so we'll see if he changes that option now that he has a superstar on his roster. But that's something to kind of keep an eye on. That Michael Jordan, not to say that he doesn't spend money, he just doesn't give out those max contracts like other organizations do.
He spends money in the wrong places. Marvin Williams, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I was talking to our good friend, the RKJ man, who is a fan of the Charlotte Hornets. He is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and him and his dad had just a shoot fest on the Hornets and all this stuff while I was over at their house the other day, because they're just saying, if we don't keep Kemba, this team is one of the, it's a horrible roster.
Right.
The Nicholas Batum came up in an unfavorable way too in those discussions. But yeah, I would obviously love if they got one of those star point guards. I just hope they don't become what the Warriors became this year, where you're just so star heavy that if one of these guys goes down, you kind of give away your title chance, right? And although the Warriors had a lot of guys go down, and it wasn't just one or two or three, it was it was like essentially everybody. I still don't. You look at what the you have recency bias, and recency bias tells me don't do what the Warriors did. Build a bench. Maybe if you can get Kemba Walker at a reduced rate, go get him. But I would rather see maybe like a Patrick Beverly be the point guard of the Lakers, and then you build a very solid roster. Maybe bring Julius Randle back or something like that. Yeah,
Julius Randle I think is going to be a little too expensive. I would love to have him. Problem is, with LeBron and with AD, Julius Randle, I don't know if he necessarily fits into that role. Number one, he's going to want to be a starter. He's not going to want to come off the bench.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to cost a little too much money. If I'm the Lakers, here's what I do. I go back and I get Brook Lopez, who was with the Lakers last year. He had a great postseason with the Milwaukee Bucks. He's a three-point shooter. He can spread the defense out, and then on the defensive side of the ball, he's a great rim protector. I go get Brook Lopez. I go get JJ Redick from the 76ers, a sniper. Because if you think about it, when LeBron James won championships, he had Kyle Korver in Cleveland, and then when he was in Miami, he had Ray Allen. Yeah. He has always had some type of shooter that he's been able to facilitate the ball and let them just kind of go wild. Because as great as LeBron James is, he is not a pure three-point shooter, right? Neither is Anthony Davis.
He's gotten better, but it's not, it's
and in today's NBA, when you're going up against the Warriors and all these other teams that like to shoot threes, the Houston Rockets, you need sharpshooters every game. So, and my dark horse, this is, I've heard this already, but I back this 1,000%. If the Lakers can go out and, so JJ Redick, Brook Lopez, and then, let's see, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm going to have to look it up. But he's another kind of old-timer guy. But he's a sharpshooter. I think he was with the Suns this past season. Sorry, I'm blanking. Jamal Crawford. Yeah. Thank you very much for saving me right now.
Former Clippers.
I had a moment. It was almost like I was like hyperventilating, and I had his name ready at the ready to say, and it couldn't come out. Jamal Crawford. Sixth man of the year multiple times in his career.
He can start too.
He can come off the bench. You can get him for $5 to $6 million a year. The best thing about him is he creates his own shot. He doesn't need LeBron James to pass him the ball. When LeBron James and Anthony Davis need a rest, or when they need a breather, you bring in Jamal Crawford. He can run the offense by himself, right? So obviously he's a little bit longer in the tooth, but you can get him for cheaper, and I think that would be a great addition to come off your bench along with Brook Lopez for that second unit.
Yeah, I mean, I would. So your starting lineup has. You're saying who's your point guard in the starting lineup? Patrick Beverly.
If they can get him, see, listen, I don't want to say that having not getting a legit all-star point guard is not a priority. But if the Lakers don't go out and get a Kyrie or get a Kemba, if they get a second-tier point guard, maybe they bring back D'Angelo Russell. Right? Or something like that.
Might be too
maybe they get a second-tier guy or a guy that's maybe not an all-star, but someone that, listen, LeBron James makes everyone around him better. Yeah. So I'm okay with, and the fact that he handles the ball so much, I'm okay with not having a ball-dominant point guard like a Kyrie Irving or like a Chris Paul, guys who are used to always having the ball. I'm okay with having more of an off guard to play point and, letting LeBron James and even Anthony Davis in certain situations kind of run with it.
Oh, I got you.
Run.
See, you want not, unless they get a star, you don't want a guy that's going to control the ball too much.
No,
maybe
not
like
at
a
all.
Mario Chalmers type when they were on the Heat, right? You had a great starting lineup, and then Mario Chalmers, who was a substandard point guard who was better and looked a lot better, but you saw once the Heat all disintegrated, he is not even in the NBA.
Because here's the thing, after that top tier of point guards that we just mentioned, and I'll say it for the third time, Kyrie, Irving, and Kemba Walker, LeBron James is a better facilitator and a better point guard
I agree with that completely.
than almost any other free agent point guard that will be on the market. So the Lakers shouldn't be, overpaying to try to get another guy if it's not those two players that we just mentioned, just to bring him in, right?
Yeah, no,
let LeBron
that's
James
fair.
handle those responsibilities. Let Anthony Davis carry the ball up a little bit, and then it just kind of go by committee in a sense. I'm okay with not necessarily having a true all-star if you can't get those.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can happen coming up in the next month or so, and I think we'll be commenting on this a lot because you're potentially creating the next NBA championship team. And when you look at a lineup where, let's say, you have JJ Redick, LeBron, Brook Lopez, and Anthony Davis, of course, and you can add anybody else in there you want to, a point guard or Kuzma. That's 6 very solid players right there. Then you add a Jamal Crawford, or you add some defensive specialists. That's going to be one of the best teams in the NBA already. And without the Warriors, it's fair game, to be honest. Because when the Warriors are the Warriors, it's not fair game. It's the Warriors who win the championship unless everybody tears their Achilles or ACL, which is what had to happen. So,
and you can't bank on that happening. Listen, injuries are a part of the game, but that was a fluke, right?
No, it was a fluke. I mean, the Raptors might have still been able to win if Klay Thompson didn't get hurt. But if Kevin Durant would have played in that series, the Warriors were going to win their 3rd consecutive championship. So, all credit to the Raptors for winning and getting that far because, it took a Kawhi Leonard Game 7 bouncing 3 to even get there. But, we all know this. When you create a super team and there's a team that dominates the league, that's not fair. But now, without that, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma,
2 of the top 5 players in the league.
Yeah,
right.
That's not fair.
So when you have that, basically just like the Warriors do, that in itself takes care of a lot of other things.
I agree.
So you get some like I said, with those other kind of role players that we just talked about, some veteran minimum guys to kind of fill out the rest of your roster because you have to have at least 12 guys on your roster when the regular season starts. But those 2 alone are going to get the Lakers 50 to 55 wins.
Yeah, that's
right. You bring in a Jamal Crawford, I guarantee you gets you at least 3 wins for the season. You have a sharpshooter in JJ Redick. You have Brook Lopez, if he can be anywhere near the player that he was this past season with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that's a very formidable lineup and role players that can play well off of LeBron and off of AD.
I completely agree. Lakers are going to be good next year.
They're not going to be good. They're going to be great.
Yeah. Okay.
The Lakers are going to be great.
Fair to say. Yeah. No, they're going to be fighting for a title. I think no matter what next year, it's just can they get over that hump and actually win it in this first year.
Barring injury, conference championship is the bare minimum.
That's what we said last year, though.
No.
I don't want to say it this year. Yeah.
No, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'll be the one to say it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Y'all are hearing me right now. Barring injury, the Lakers
on Twitter too.
better make it to at least the conference championship game, or this season is a loss.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
So you now have LeBron and AD paired in LA. You have Damian Lillard, TJ McCollum. You're gonna have Steph Curry and Draymond Green. But one of the power couples in the NBA has not been working out very lately. The Houston Rockets are in turmoil right now. Chris Paul, James Harden, fighting back and forth. Mike D'Antoni can't get his contract extension done. The GM is coming out saying he wants to trade everybody and start over. Jared, what the hell is happening in Houston? What is true and what isn't true? Please explain to me, because I see a different story every single day coming out of Houston.
And I do as well. So I feel like there are so many conflicting reports, right? Daryl Morey, the general manager of the Houston Rockets, has come out in multiple interviews already and tried to, deflect the situation and say, things are fine. Yeah, there's a little bit of tension, but hey, there's tension everywhere, right?
Yeah.
No one's dumb, okay? We all know what he's trying to say, which is, yes, there is a problem, but I can't actually come out and say that to the public.
There clearly is something wrong with the Houston Rockets, whether it be the dislike to the GM, Daryl Morey, whether it be a disconnect between Mike D'Antoni and the players, or whether it be this rift you have between Chris Paul and James Harden. And to be honest, it kind of makes sense, because They were so close to getting to an NBA Finals 2 years ago, and then they get back, they have a chance to play a depleted Warriors team without Kevin Durant, and they don't win a single game without Kevin Durant on the court. That would throw me into turmoil too. Good teams fight back from that, like we've seen the Warriors do before, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Bad teams do this. And unfortunately, something's going to happen in Houston that's going to be drastic, and they're not going to be the same juggernaut that they were.
Here's what I think happened. Chris Paul, for his entire career, has been a ball-dominant point guard, right? He has the ball in his hands, whether he's looking to make a play and shoot the ball, or whether he's looking to facilitate to one of his teammates. Since he's been in Houston, Mike D'Antoni's offense has been predicated around James Harden controlling the ball, right?
Yeah.
There's not that much movement. It is literally James Harden tries to get the best shot that he can. If he can't, then maybe he will pass it, right? So when James Harden's on and he's shooting, everything looks great, everything's peachy, everyone's happy. But James Harden, whether if he gets injured, if he's having an off night, either way, Chris Paul was not happy with the way that he was being utilized in the system. When the fact that you're paying your point guard $38 million a year to not basically do his responsibilities that you would think a point guard would do, yes, I would be upset as well. So there are many reports that are saying that Chris Paul has demanded a trade out of Houston.
Yeah, how's that going to happen, though? His contract's like $100 million.
His contract is very tricky, and I do not believe that there are many other teams in the league, if any, that would want to take on that contract.
Tell the viewers what so Chris Paul has 3 remaining years?
Chris Paul has 3 years left. So for this upcoming season, Chris Paul is set to make $38 million.
Yep, that's crazy.
The next season after that, he's set to make $41, and in 3 years, he's set to make $44 million. He will be, I believe, 37 or 38 years old at that time. Hell
that's
no.
BS.
Am I paying, not Chris Paul, because I have a lot of respect for him, but anyone at the age of 38, other than maybe LeBron James,
but even LeBron, I'm not giving
$1 million per season. That's a little ridiculous. So the Rockets are kind of in a pickle because they were the ones who signed into this contract, right? So you kind of have to, they have to slap themselves on the wrist because they were the ones who went into the situation and not, they didn't necessarily see this coming with all the turmoil. But the fact that, all this is going on, the fact that Mike D'Antoni's not getting his contract extension, maybe it will probably happen, but maybe not as quickly as he thought. There are a lot of things going wrong. I do want to point to that very quickly. Listen, Mike D'Antoni, he is a good regular season coach. In the postseason, what has he done?
Nothing. He's never even got to a championship.
So, okay, in any business, right, let's just take it away from sports for a minute. If you are not progressing, if you're not bringing things to the table, right, if you're not meeting your goals and your expectations set by your boss, how can you then go to your boss and ask for an extension, right? It's not going to happen.
Normally, when that happens, there's a 5-letter word that gets associated in there.
Oh, okay.
Fired.
Right.
So why are you talking about extension? I've never heard extension talks in business when there's failure, right? It's ridiculous. And especially since they failed even worse the second year around. They actually got worse and it wasn't like they went, the first year they lost in 6 to the Warriors and then it took them to 7. You're like, okay, we just need a couple more players. No. You got worse. You tried to, you didn't sign back Trevor Ariza. You made mistakes, and now he wants to blow up the team.
Let's be very, very clear, because I'm sure there are a lot of people right now who either have followed the Rockets in the last couple of years, maybe you're a fan of the Rockets, or maybe right now you're actually looking up their record for the last couple of seasons. From a regular season standpoint, the Rockets have done very, very well, right? So when we say they're failure, they have so much talent on their team that this Rockets organization should be in the championship every single year. The problem is they've had to go up against the Warriors, and they haven't been able to get past them. But with James Harden and Chris Paul and Capella and Gordon and all the other players that they have on that team, they should be able to get to the championship. The fact that they have not, that's why I'm saying that it is a failure. Just like with the Lakers, it should be conference finals at least, bare minimum, or bust. For the Houston Rockets, it should be championship or bust, because they have done everything but. And when you keep getting to the same area and plateauing and you're not able to push through, at a certain point, there has to be change.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Mike D'Antoni should not play out the rest of his contract. I'm not saying that he should get fired. But at a certain point, when you're coming to the table and looking for an extension, excuse me, have you ever won a championship in your 20 plus years of coaching? I don't think so, right? Because at the end of the day, people are not going to remember you by what you did in the regular season. It's about what you do in the postseason, and it's about having a ring and a championship trophy. And as of right now, Mike D'Antoni has neither.
No, he's not. And one more thing. So you talk about, there's got to be change. Who's another team that's synonymous with not getting anywhere? The Los Angeles Clippers. I'll admit it. They haven't got past the second round ever. What did they do? They blew up the team, right? They gave away DeAndre Jordan. They gave away Chris Paul, who we're talking about right now again, and they gave away Blake Griffin. This past year, arguably, they had the best performance out of any Western Conference team in the playoffs besides Golden State. And if Golden State was depleted, the Clippers might have actually beat them if they didn't have Kevin Durant and what happened in the Raptors series. So that's what you have to be looking to do. Now they did have Doc Rivers around, but Doc Rivers has championship pedigree, so it's a little different story. And that obviously worked out. Doc Rivers single-handedly, in some ways, got them to the playoffs this year and got them to where they were. So, there's got to be change. It's going to be hard to move that Chris Paul contract, but there's going to be change. I'll call it right now here on the Cover 2 podcast. There's going to be change with the Houston Rockets. Really quickly, our viewer Mitch Jackson asked us, how are the Bucks going to be next season? I have actually told people off this podcast that I believe the Bucks are going to make it to the finals next year. I think the Greek Freak will find a way to get past the Toronto Raptors this year and make it to the finals. So I'm very high in the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay. They do need to not lose too many of their players because they're probably going to lose Lopez, and Chris Middleton just got out of his contract.
Right.
But I think they'll sign him back, and as long as those guys end up performing, Eric Bledsoe, Giannis, who I think could be the best player in the NBA in 2 years, and complementary pieces, I think they'll be fine.
Listen, Giannis is already posting videos of himself in the gym getting ready for next season.
And that's
the dude is an absolute freak, right?
Yes.
He doesn't go take vacations in the Bahamas he doesn't go buy an island and just get away for a month. The dude is already in the gym with his brother training, ready for next season.
He's not going to be on banana boats, for example.
No, he is an animal. And I think that the fact that he is the unquestioned leader of that team, I think that rubs off on his teammates to where, I'm sure his teammates are going to, need a little bit of a break from basketball after such a long season. But I'm pretty sure his teammates are ready to get back and get to work. Here's the thing, though. You're right. Chris Middleton opted out of his contract, so he's technically a free agent. But the reports are that the Bucks want to sign him back.
He wants more money because he was an all-star.
Brogdon is a potential free agent as well. So, and like I mentioned, Brook Lopez is an unrestricted free agent, so he can, if he doesn't get the contract that he wants from the Bucks, he can leave and sign wherever he would like. So the team can look a little different if they can bring back their core pieces and maybe add one or two, whether it's through the draft or free agency. It's hard to disagree with you that the Bucks are going to be right there, and especially we don't know what's going to happen if Kawhi leaves Toronto.
Kawhi leaves Toronto, 100%.
There's no way Toronto's championship team. The Philadelphia 76ers, if they lose Jimmy Butler, if they lose J.J. Redick, if they lose Tobias Harris, listen, obviously you have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, but is that going to be enough? So I think there's a very, very good argument for the Milwaukee Bucks going into next season, depending how the dominoes fall.
And I like that you started listing off Eastern Conference teams with a chance at a championship because, Jared, this might be my favorite segment of the whole podcast. The Boston Celtics are falling apart, guys. We're talking about championship teams. The Celtics are nowhere near the championship. They might not even be in the playoffs this year. I gotta tell you, Jared, it excites me that it excites me in the same week that the Boston Bruins lose Game 7 to the St. Louis Blues. Shout out to the St. Louis Blues for that fantastic performance, not allowing Boston to win Game 7 in their hometown. And now the Celtics, they're going to lose Kyrie. There's reports that Al Horford's going to get out of his contract. Already did. I'm not even sure. Jared, why do people not want to play in Boston? And why did Anthony Davis not even give Boston a thought? Like, what's going on with that organization to where people don't want to go there? This is different from the Rockets. They've built up and kind of gotten better and better every single year.
Right.
They struggled a little bit with chemistry last year, but I don't think it was enough to blow up the team. What's happening?
Listen, 2 years ago, when Kyrie Irving was hurt, and I believe it was his first year with Boston, the Boston Celtics had Terry Rozier as their point guard. It was Jason Tatum's rookie year. You had Marcus Smart. You had Al Horford. It's almost like with I'm going to use the same analogy like with Kevin Durant with the Warriors. When Kevin Durant is in the game for the Warriors, they might not move the ball and play as much team offense, but they are no doubt a better team with Kevin Durant on the court, right?
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing with the Boston Celtics. When Kyrie Irving is on the court, he is such a ball-dominant player that, yes, maybe they don't move the ball around and they don't have as good of a flow on offense, but there's no doubt that they are better with him on the court than they are with him off the court. But there's an argument to be made that 2 years ago when Kyrie Irving was injured, that they played very well in the postseason. Jason Tatum had a coming out party, right? And there was an argument as to whether the Lakers should have taken Jason Tatum or not because they passed him up in that draft. So, listen, the Boston Celtics, if they lose Kyrie, which it looks like they will, if they lose Al Horford, which it looks like they will be one of the youngest teams in the league.
Yeah.
Right?
Lakers.
They're very athletic. They will have to bring back Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart, in my opinion. Terry Rozier, at the end of the season, or when the Celtics got bumped out of the playoffs, went on ESPN's First Take, and without actually saying it, basically threw some people under the bus and said, I'm not coming back to Boston. Things have now changed. Maybe the Boston Celtics, now they might have some more money to throw at Terry Rozier and say, hey, these are the kings of the kingdom, you're the point guard, run with it, right? So I like Boston. I think Boston will definitely make the playoffs, but without having that experience, losing a championship experience from Kyrie Irving and the playoff experience from Al Horford, I'm not so sure that they will be able to replace that in free agency. And so, yeah, they can make it to the first round of the playoffs, but they will be no match for Milwaukee. I don't even think they'll be a match for the 76ers. So, yes, Boston, they're probably a couple years away from really contending from an experience standpoint.
No, absolutely. I think there's, their roster is not a bad one. If they do bring back Rozier and Marcus Smart, they have a starting lineup, or at least 5 guys in Tatum, Brown, Hayward, who now will be, what I believe, fully healthy from his broken leg.
Yes.
Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart. That's a pretty good lineup to start with. You can go out, maybe they added Tobias Harris, maybe they go out potentially, if they don't bring Terry Rozier out, maybe they bring a D'Angelo Russell over, something along the lines of that. I don't think the Celtics will be a bad team next year, but a title contender, it's almost impossible to say without Kyrie Irving, without
not on paper.
Yeah,
anything can happen,
and I'm not mad.
But not on paper.
Yeah, no, but and I'm gonna take all the shots I can at Boston sports, but it's just, I don't know. I really don't know what's going on there, because you thought. You have this young coach in Brad Stevens. They signed this huge contract. All these young guys. Maybe this is one of those scenarios where you put too many good players on one team with too many egos, and it just didn't. Guys wanted to play, and other guys thought they were missing spots, and maybe people didn't think Al Horford was there, or thought Kyrie Irving was over. Like, it's just, I don't really know what happened, but Anthony Davis clearly didn't want to go to that either.
There's a couple points.
Yeah.
First, about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis from the get-go, whether it's been his dad coming out as representative for him, whether it's been Rich Paul, his agent, coming out, he has always wanted to play in either LA or New York. Now, we know Boston is a big market, but LA and New York are the 2 biggest markets that we have. And Anthony Davis, obviously he got drafted by the Pelicans, so he didn't have a choice to go there. But when he realized, okay, I'm coming up on free agency, I'm going to have a pick and say of where I want to go, he wanted to be, like I said, in either LA or New York. So what did Rich Paul do? His agent basically came out and iced almost every other team into saying, listen, you can trade for my player, but you're only going to have him for a year, right? So if you give up assets, you are going to give those assets up for the long haul, and you're only going to be taking Anthony Davis for a year. And then after that season, Anthony Davis is going to say bye-bye. Yeah. So the Boston Celtics actually did the very smart thing by not trading for him, because they would have more than likely had to have given up Jason Tatum. And he is way too talented of a player.
He's better than anything Lakers gave in there.
He is, exactly. But you do not give up Jason Tatum for a 1-year rental. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So with no reassurances that Anthony Davis was going to sign long-term with them, you can't make that type of trade. That's number one. Al Horford, I kind of have to disagree with you. I think he's one of the most professional players in the league. He's a stand-up guy. He's a locker room guy. Everyone respects him. I believe he'll be 33 or 34 going into next season. But his game, he's kind of got like old man game where he's not fast. He doesn't play the up-paced tempo that today's NBA is. But he's almost like Paul Pierce in the sense where he ends up getting to his spots. Right?
He gets the job done.
He gets the job done. So he is more than likely going to command close to, if not $30 million this offseason, which is why he declined his contract with Boston, because he would have made only in like the low 20s. So obviously, if he has an opportunity to make more money, then he's going to do that.
If you're Boston, do you give him $30 million? Because you lose Kyrie, and you probably would have been.
If you're Boston, I make an offer. I think at this point, I think Al Horford's very smart, and he kind of sees the writing on the wall that this team is turning the corner in a bad way, and he kind of wants to position himself with another team. So, yeah, I'm sure Boston can make him an offer, but there's no guarantees so far from the reports that we have heard that he would accept, nor does he want to be in Boston. Last point, because I knew we have to move on. As far as Kyrie Irving goes, listen, Kyrie Irving obviously got drafted by the Cavaliers out of Duke, right? So he didn't have a say in where he wanted to go there. And then he got traded to the Boston Celtics. So we didn't have a full say of going to the Celtics either, right? I think he is at the point in his career where he says, I want to control the narrative. I want to have a full say of where I play. So I think for him, this is just about his first ever experience since he was a high school player and he had the opportunity to go to any college that he wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? He hasn't had that for many years ever since he's been a professional. So he's now saying, I want to be, I want everyone to come to me, right? I'm tired of going where people tell me to go. So I think for him, he was saying, especially with the turmoil that was going on, all the injuries and everything that he had with his short stint in Boston, he's like, I'm going where I want to go. And as of right now, Brooklyn seems to have that early lead.
Yeah, no, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with the Celtics and with these guys from the Celtics, Kyrie Irving and Al Horford, because there's such big pieces of that team. Taking two big pieces off of any team hurts, but a team with a future, a team with championship aspirations like the Celtics, it's kind of unheard of in a way, like lately, to see that happen. So, we'll see what happens. But hey, we're not done talking trades because stuff just keeps going down. And this wasn't even, all this stuff happened before this podcast, a couple days before. This trade we're about to talk about happened today, and it now joined two other great players in the Western Conference, in Donovan Mitchell, and now the newly added to the Utah Jazz, Mike Conley. He was traded to Utah earlier today it was Grayson Allen, Jay Crowder, Kyle Korver, and the 23rd pick in the 2019 NBA draft.
As well as a first-round pick from next year.
Yeah, okay, so they had the extra pick. Jared, I thought this was actually a little less to give for. I thought Mike Conley was valued a little bit more. I know his contract's difficult, which is probably why.
That's why.
It is, but I thought Mike Conley, when he's healthy, is still one of the best point guards in the league.
No doubt.
In my opinion. I think you can even put him in that top 5, especially when he has talent around him. I know Memphis wanted to get rid of him. I'm not criticizing the fact that Memphis got rid of him. It's more what they got back. Grayson Allen is unproven. Kyle Korver said he was going to retire. Jay Crowder is a little bit overrated. And the draft picks they're going to have, one of them will be
They're
decent.
not early draft picks.
Yeah, they're not early draft picks. There's a water bottle that just fell. But no, I just think it was a little less to get back for him. But nonetheless, I think we should be talking about the Utah Jazz, not the Memphis.
There's two reasons why Memphis did not get maybe as much back as you thought. Number one was, like you mentioned, the contract. Yeah. Mike Conley is the highest paid player in the NBA for those who do not know. Mm-hmm. Now, Mike Conley is an outstanding point guard. The fact that he plays in a very small market in Memphis, they just don't get a whole lot of national televised games. So unless you're an avid basketball fan, probably don't really know who Mike Conley is, unfortunately, because he is a great basketball player.
Fantastic.
And the second reason is because in this NBA draft that's going to take place tomorrow night, it is basically a lot of people have been saying that it is a 3-man draft with Zion Williams, John Morant, and RJ Barrett. The Memphis Grizzlies have the number 2 overall pick, and it is widely expected that they will take John Morant, who basically plays the same position as Mike Conley. So with the Jazz knowing that and knowing that the Memphis Grizzlies are about to get their replacement, if I'm the Jazz, I'm not going to give up the round. I'm going to say you already have someone lined up. It's not like you're trading Mike Conley and then you're going to have to go out and through free agency try to pull someone's teeth to get another player like Mike Conley.
Yes.
They're in tomorrow, in less than 24 hours, they will have another Mike Conley on their roster. So if you're the Jazz, I believe the Jazz had a little more leverage in this situation than Memphis did. Still, Memphis gets key players in return, and whether they're going through a rebuild at this point, who knows? We'll see if John Morant can be the face of that franchise. But you're right, we need to turn this to the Utah Jazz with Mike Conley now joining Donovan Mitchell, and I think that is a very formidable lineup.
Not only Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert,
right,
who was on the All-NBA team this past year. I mean, this starting lineup, it's going to be Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Derek Favors, and Rudy Gobert. That's if none of them are free agents, the other ones I mentioned. I know Gobert isn't and Mitchell isn't. Ingles, Favors, not exactly sure, just off the top of my head, just looking at the lineup here. And they have also some younger players too on this Jazz team. But they see the fact that they kind of got embarrassed a little bit in this past playoff season, and they should have gone further than they did. And they were unable to even get past the first round. So I think they're like, let's do something big. We have nothing coming up with this draft. We're not going to draft anybody big. So how do we do that? Let's add one of the best point guards in the game. And like we're mentioning, they really didn't give up that much. They gave up a young Grayson Allen, but he really doesn't have a place on this team with Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles is almost the same exact player as Grayson Allen. And of course, Jay Crowder, Kyle Korver, you can kind of release them from any roster whenever because they're just
trading pieces.
They're tradable. Yeah, they're very tradable players. So and then you give up some first round picks, but that doesn't matter if you're going for championships, especially these late first round picks. And one of them being tomorrow, you already knew it probably wasn't going to matter for the franchise anyways. So instead of the 23rd pick, they now have Mike Conley.
So with this new addition, where does this put the Jazz as far as the pecking order in the West?
I mean, it puts them top 5 for sure. I think you have to go right now, assuming the Lakers make some smart moves. They're probably 1 or 2. You have to put Portland still up there. I'm not going to go past saying Golden State's still in the top 5 just because of the prowess, and they'll probably build a solid roster around. And then you have teams like Utah and Oklahoma City. And I might be forgetting some teams, and let me know if I am.
Houston.
Well, no, I'm not going to put Houston up because if Houston gives away Chris Paul and just has James Harden, I don't know if Harden makes them a top 5 team. So I'll stick it. I think the Utah Jazz right now are better than the Houston
Clippers.
Rockets.
The Clippers
Again, right now, it's I cannot put a team with 3 very, very good players behind a team that has 1.
The Clippers took the Golden State Warriors to 6 games with Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson and Steph Curry.
And if they add Kawhi Leonard, they're definitely in the top 5. We saw what Kawhi Leonard did with very similar talent in Toronto, and he won a championship. He didn't make the playoffs. He won a championship, and he beat those Warriors that the Clippers were not unable to beat, albeit a different Warriors team. So, yeah, I think the Jazz are going to be a really, really good team next year. They have a tough crowd, altitude as well. Mike Conley will probably have to get used to that in the first couple games, but I think he'll be fine by the end of it. And barring major injury, I think the Utah Jazz will have a chance to get to the conference finals. I'm not going to say that they're going to get to the finals, but when you're talking about the Lakers getting to the conference finals, I could almost come here and guarantee that if they stay healthy, you could see them in the conference finals as well.
Really?
Them in Portland. The West is going to be awesome to watch. The West is going to be awesome. But, yeah, Mike Conley goes to the Jazz. Memphis clearly rebuilding now with a couple young guys that they got last year. And then John Morant, who's going to be their franchise cornerstone.
It's crazy right now because at many points at this time in the offseason, this is all about the NBA draft, right? In years past, I don't remember a time where we have been so fixated on free agency and big moves with Anthony Davis going to the Lakers, Conley going to the Jazz, the tension in Houston, what's going to happen with Boston, is Milwaukee still going to be the same? What's Kawhi Leonard going to do? There are so many different topics and news stories circulating around the NBA that it's almost like the NBA draft, which should be the focal point, is taking a very large back seat at this current moment, even though, like I mentioned, we are less than 24 hours away from that NBA draft where we will have Zion Williams, John Morant, and RJ Barrett, along with many others joining the NBA.
No, let's transition. This is going to be our last topic of the podcast, getting you ready for the NBA draft. We're not going to do some in-depth analysis because, albeit it's almost impossible for non-NBA draft specialists to do a proper mock draft. And especially considering we know number 1 is going to be Zion. More than likely, now that Mike Conley's gone, number 2 is John Morant. And number 3 is RJ Barrett. New York can't screw up everything this offseason. You never know. They might. If they don't, I mean... it's not going to happen. So this
okay.
All
right.
But what we're going to do is we're just going to give you guys a player or 2 if you want to add another player into it. a player that is not one of those three that we think could end up being like one of those three. When we look back on this draft, we go, it was Zion, it was Morant, it was RJ Barrett, and it was this man. Or you could say, if you don't think there is anybody, say I think this the Suns, Knicks, and the Knicks, Grizzlies, and Pelicans are all going to get somebody good.
Yeah, no, listen, like I mentioned earlier in the show, there's a lot of people in the NBA circles who are saying that this is a three-man draft, as in Zion Williams, John Morant, and RJ Barrett. And I can't disagree with them because that's not throwing any shade at any of these other players coming out, like a Darius Garland or a Jarrett Culver. They're going to be some good talent coming into the NBA. But when you're talking about those three players that I just mentioned that will go top three, those are game changers. Those are difference makers. Those are potential superstars that can have a major effect on a franchise immediately, right? When you get into the middle of the first round, late first round, and even the second round, you're talking about developing players into becoming superstars. Donovan Mitchell was drafted late. He's just the first guy that comes to my mind. But when he first came into the NBA, at least the first half of his rookie season, I mean, he was not the superstar that he is now, right? It took a little bit of developing. So these top three guys, you're expecting them to come in and basically lead a franchise, right? When you get down to basically at number 4, it starts to become a little bit more questionable as far as, is this player going to be able to come in and immediately contribute to the success of a team, or is it going to take some time for them to get used to playing in the NBA and playing 82 games as opposed to 30 games and all of that. So I agree that it is a 3-man draft, and after that, it's almost a crapshoot.
Yeah, no, it's going to be crazy. I have one player, and I could say, Jarrett Culver's going to be great. Darius Garland's going to surprise people. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go with someone that's projecting to be not even a lottery pick. Bol from Oregon. And this is actually not a biased pick. I know... I follow modern day basketball. I have a very close family friend that's on the team, and he actually played with Bol in high school. So I've seen this kid play a bunch of times in recent years. Mm-hmm. He's 7'2", wingspan of 7'8", and he's 210 pounds. He's Manute Bol's son. If you've ever seen the pictures of what Manute Bol looked like, his son's a little bit thicker, but that's not saying much. But he can shoot. He's Kevin Durant, but he's not. And I think he has all the potential in the world. And I think the only reason his draft stock has dropped is because he tore his ACL last year. So I think the steal of the draft is going to be Bol. I think it might take 3 or 4 years, but Bol will be in the conversation. He will be an all-star.
See, my only hesitation with that is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of him is I think of Yao Ming. And not in the sense that they have the same similar style of play. I just think if they are such large human beings that it's at some point they're going to get injured. Their knees are going to be shot. It's something, you know what I mean? Like Yao Ming eventually, that's why he wasn't in the NBA for long. I know he obviously played overseas, but when he got to the NBA, he didn't have as long of a career as many people would have thought because of the injuries that started to pile up, because he is such a large human being and his body just could not take the physical toll of playing a full 82-game season with potentially playoffs and all of that, and then the relatively short recovery time in the offseason. So I like that pick, but I'm just skeptical that he can have a sustainable career because of his size.
Well, and going to your point, he's not as tall as his father, who is 7'7".
Jeez.
But
7'7",
200 pounds. Crazy. Watch the videos of Manute Bol hitting like 6 threes in one game. It's insane. But his father only ended up playing 10 years in the NBA.
Which is very respectable.
Well, it's respectable, but to the point of I'm saying 2-3 years, then he becomes an all-star. That's a very short, especially in the NBA, a very short lifespan for a good player. You look at LeBron. LeBron is one of the best players of all time, so it's a little bit different. But he's been playing in the NBA, 15 years already, maybe even more than that. And you expect him to do more. Most of the other great players, it's at least 15 years. So to say a player's only going to be good for 7, maybe you aren't getting the value out of that. But if he can win you a championship or two, I just think you look at that wingspan, you look at the way it's all going, and I just think that Bol is going to be the next great NBA star besides those three at the top of the draft.
I basically wanted to wrap up this NBA draft segment with basically saying that I think this draft starts with the number 4 overall pick.
Yeah.
Which the Lakers, you will see the Lakers logo on the screen at number 4, but because of the Anthony Davis trade, they traded that pick to the Pelicans. So the Pelicans, I believe, really own this draft because they not only have the first pick, but they have the 4th pick, and they have a multitude of decisions that they can make.
Well, you can also trade it back, get 2 more
That's what I'm
picks,
saying.
yeah.
They can keep the pick and just trade it and just draft a player outright. They can draft someone and then trade that player, or they can trade that pick before they are able to even draft someone. So there are so many different areas that they can go. I believe there are a few teams that are actually looking to move up for that number 4 pick. And I saw one scenario, I forget the team off the top of my head, but the Pelicans would trade their number 4 pick for the number 8 and 10 picks. So they're still staying. So they're still staying in the top 10.
That'd be Atlanta.
Right. I believe Atlanta was one of the teams that was looking to jump up. So you're still staying in the top 10. You're getting an extra pick, but it's not that number 4 pick. And at number 4, is that a better player than what you can combine with 8 and 10? So I think, listen, I don't think anyone in the Pelicans organization is getting any sleep tonight, nor is most other organizations, because they will be up working the phones and going with trades and all of that.
Yeah, even the Lakers, the NBA's draft's not like the NFL where it's one day. The draft's over tomorrow.
Right,
the whole thing. So even the Lakers, who we assume won't have a first-round pick this year, are going to be looking to try to get second-round picks.
Exactly. The Lakers are actively looking to get multiple second-round picks to fill out their roster with, minimum players or players that they're not going to have to pay a whole lot. Because, like we mentioned in the first segment, if you missed it, go back and check it out, where we kind of dissected the Lakers' trade with the Pelicans and receiving Anthony Davis. If they do go out and get another max player, they will have very, very small wiggle room to go out and get anyone else that is, reasonable. It would be veteran minimum players and or rookies. So watch out for the Lakers in the second round of the playoffs to make some moves and try to get 2 or 3 picks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Draft's going to be exciting tomorrow. It will be interesting once that 4th pick hits.
Exactly. 1 through 3, not exciting because we basically know what's going to happen. When pick 4 starts, that's when you can basically turn the TV on, and that's when they should really start the NBA draft.
The only thing that would be crazy in the first 3 picks is if for some reason Memphis drafts RJ Barrett. And then we're wondering why that happened. But the top 3, no matter what, will be Zion, Barrett, and John Morant, barring one of these guys doing something insane tonight and not being worthy of being drafted.
No.
Yeah, that you never know that could happen. But it would more than likely, once the quote-unquote Lakers pick comes up, which will be the Pelicans will actually start this draft no matter what tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying.
Or
saying.
First pick. So
that's it.
It'll be interesting. It'll be good. This has been a good podcast. We need to end it right now just because we're running short on time. But lots of NBA news, and this is what you get excited about in these late June, early July months. Right. Obviously, the Stanley Cup is done. The celebration of the Raptors championship is done. Baseball's in the swing, but even, it comes around the All-Star break, baseball starts, settling down a little bit, and football mini camps are over. So you need this news, and we were able to absolutely fill nearly an hour today talking straight about just actual storylines that we need to talk about, too. So, good podcast today. Thank you for everybody that contributed and asked us questions. Please, if you're watching this later on Facebook, know that when we do this live, you can ask us questions, and we will answer them if the time. If it's
a good question, if it's a bad question, then we're just going to skip right over it.
Because we see them, but sometimes we're just like, I'm not answering.
Only good, well thought out questions, please.
Absolutely,
and
please.
Thank you.
100%. But for the Cup 2 podcast, I'm Nenad,
and I'm Jared Smith,
and we will see you next week.